interracial relationship, interracial sex has actually been a tool of white supremacy. It's been one of the ways that they've been used to try to lower the Black population and to try to minimize the threat of Black progress.
I went to the movies today, and do you guys know that every single preview today was every single preview was about a Black woman in an interracial relationship. I mean, every single one. It was Running Man, it was one battle after another, and then there were like 3 others before it that also featured Black women in interracial relationships. Mind you, I was on an interracial date, so I was like, oh, not this movie's about me. But yeah, I'm never one to delve too deep into a conspiracy theory. But that was weird. Like, am I the only one that noticed this? And I know people are gonna say that's the Nicolandria effect and everything, but I mean that's pretty quick. And I feel like one battle after another, the trailers and previews for that have been coming out way before Love Island casted. So also all these movies and stuff were being made before Love Island. So now I'm actually thinking Love Island is a part of the wave. What is that? What's up with that? And I mean, I don't want to say it's a bad thing or anything, but I do have my spidey senses are tingling. That's all I'm gonna say. But it was very interesting. I kind of think it's like a welcome departure from like the terrible stuff that we usually get in terms of Black women's like, representation in media. So in that way, I'm like glad about it, but also like, dag, like all of them, all.
First of all, Black women's representation in media, I think we just have to be in acceptance that the only way you're going to truly have a positive, empowering message that helps build the Black community, Black men and Black women, is if Black people own it. We're at the point to where Hollywood has shown for how many hundreds of years that it's not really about trying to build or empower the Black community, Black men, Black women. It's not about that. It's about selling an image. It's about capitalism. It's about money. And unfortunately, that is oftentimes at the expense of our image. There's never really been an uplifting, empowering, consistent barrage of messages that come from Hollywood that represent Black people. Usually you may see a Black woman, like she said, but then you'll see that they're connected with a white man, or you're going to see that they push LGBTQ, or you're going to see that you're hard pressed to find healthy, uplifting examples of Black femininity and Black masculinity that are about trying to promote healthy self-esteem, because that's not what Hollywood is about. It is about making money off of a market. And so this whole representation in media that I hear Black women talk about, it's like, okay, well, unless you support nationalism and you are about supporting Black men who are trying to build institutions and create realities that they own and control, and where they tell their own story, whether it's you're supporting Black male independent filmmakers, you're supporting just Black independent news media in general, or things of that nature, like unless you're doing that and you're helping to fund that, then we have to stop looking to media to represent us accurately. They're never going to be able to tell our story in the way that we could. Just needed to add that caveat. Now, what she is saying about Black women and white men in movies is the most unsurprising thing that I've heard all week. It's like, where have you been the last few decades? Now, maybe she's just aware of this now. She mentioned being an interracial date. The context around this was her first time, but nevertheless, like maybe she's more hyper aware because that is her experience. And she also mentioned Nicolandria, which that is now being pushed all across the media. But the interracial swirl thing is like such a consistent theme, really pretty much since Loving versus Virginia. You've seen that. It's been a part of Black feminism, Black feminist culture, and it's been a part of media for decades now. Think about Scandal. The popularity of Scandal was largely driven by Black women who were enamored with the idea of a white president having a Black mistress. And that is pulling on really age-old stereotypes stereotypes about the quote bedwench unquote, which is basically the slave master's black side piece. What she's talking about, these are like age-old historical tropes that have been in American history for like a really long time, and they reinvent themselves all the time. Now, about her conspiracy of like, are you guys like trying to promote something or whatever? I'm gonna put on my conspiracy theory hat right now just for a few minutes. So you have Bill Gates, for example, who was so concerned about African women's womb. Like, what does a white dude from the United States, I think he's from the Silicon Valley, like, why does he have interest how many babies a Kenyan woman is having? Why does he care about that? He clearly does. He cannot stay out of Africa or India. He's always trying to do something weird, trying to control stuff. And ultimately, he's been very open about his desire to lower the population. The issue is, while the Western European white societies are declining, you have countries like India that are booming, and you have Africa that is just, the birth rate is like insane. I mean, by the year, I think 2050, they say 1 in 4 people in the world is expected to be African. So you have people like Bill Gates who are really, really concerned in trying to keep the Black African population as low as possible. Now, why is that important? What does it have to do with the swirling and divestiture movement? The reason that's important is because it is a tool of white supremacy. Honestly, interracial relationship, interracial sex has actually been a tool of white supremacy. It's been one of the ways that they've been used to try to curtail or to try to lower the Black population and to try to minimize the threat of Black progress by using interracial marriage or interracial sex. Now I enter Thomas Jefferson's. The math problem he created, he basically predicted that through interbreeding, black person with a white person, if you did that after generations, you would be able to breed out Blackness. Put another way, Thomas Jefferson created a math problem on how to breed out Blackness. And the way to breed out Blackness was through interracial sex. Interracial relationships. So I don't want to be like super conspiratorial, but I'm being super conspiratorial when I'm saying I believe there's definitely an agenda to either curtail, to minimize, or to try to stop the Black population from growing, because it is a threat to some creepy white folks in power who are racist when you have hella Black people, because at a certain point they can start taking control of their own resources. This is what we see going on like with the Sahel States Alliance. They're saying, you know what, Europeans, we don't need you here anymore. Bye. Like, can you get out of our country? Can you just let us do our thing? Because unfortunately in Africa right now, you still got them being babysat by a lot of these imperialist nations and a lot of these like European nations. So they don't have access to, they're paying taxes to France, they're paying taxes to the British Commonwealth, they're paying taxes to these European nations, and that money is not going back into their country, which is why they're not progressing. So again, as long as you can keep these countries controlled, then your empire can thrive. But if they get too populous, at a certain point, that becomes a threat to your empire. And this is exactly what I think is going on. And I didn't want to go down this rabbit hole. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but I think that there's something to be said about a growing Black population, a declining Black population, a changing power dynamic, a changing economic dynamic, how these stories are shifting, and why there is such a need to try to keep basically people asleep. My opinion. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I go way off the deep end here? Did I touch upon some things that you agree with? Am I missing something? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.